The Beavers had a tough fight on their hands with the Utes.
Touchdown.
And the weather last weekend. The offense was limited to the ground for both teams. A physical game went the Utes' way in the end. This week, it's a trip to 5th-ranked Washington, and with injuries mounting, a new but familiar name under center this week. Coach Gary Anderson joins us to discuss the challenges ahead and the growth from last few weeks. Beavers Inside the Huddle starts now.
Well, that can't be from last Saturday, as it was rainy, it was windy, and there was no sun shining down at Reser Stadium. Welcome into Beavers Inside the Huddle, along with Steve Priest. I'm Dusty Hara. How about the weather at Reser? Not as bad as we thought. Still not a pretty day.
Hey, Dusty, I'll tell you, if you were down there for a second, you wanted to get off the field, and you could see, I'll bet there was a 30-yard difference in field goals and kickoffs in that game, let alone punch. You notice when they had a kick, they chose to kick it off instead of punt on a safety kick.
There was a lot that we need to dive into as Oregon State fell to the Utah Utes. So let's get right to it, why don't we? It is our pyramid heating and cooling, hot and cold. And what's hot? How about that run game? Yet again, this is what, the third straight week, Steve, that we have seen Oregon State really start to get their legs, if you will, in the ground game.
Well, this new offensive line, you see Ryan Nall go for 32. That was his only carry. Yet the Beavers still managed to average over 6 yards a carry. Quarterback Daryl Gerritsen has a long run as well. But for the Beavers to get that many yards, it wasn't 474 like Cal, but in this particular situation, they still put double what Utah had been giving up without any kind of passing game.
Well, yeah, and that's it's easier said than done, because especially when you look at, they knew you're only going to run the football
every play. And you look at the statistics on these guys, it's pretty impressive that they're getting that out, how they're getting outside, and how this is working with very little inside running game. Now, it's a testament to those offensive linemen we talked about so much last week. The changes they've made in the offensive line are really good, and the Beavers need to stick with the run. That's their way to win right now.
And, you know, that says a lot about the offensive line, but it also says a lot about those four guys carrying the football as well. I mean, you take Ryan Nall out in the first few weeks, it was tough sledding, trying to find who was going to be that next backup. I think that they are feeling comfortable with Artavis Pierce.
Oh, Artavis is doing everything you can ask him to do. He runs inside very well. He pops out. He's reading the blocks of his offensive linemen, as well as I've seen a freshman do that. And it's very good for Oregon State to get to use all these people, because when all comes back, they're going to be stocked.
Yep. Now we've got the hot. We also have to get to the cold here. And it wasn't just cold in Reser Stadium. It was cold on the field as well. The passing game struggled mightily against the Utes.
Well, if you call 1 yard for 3/4 struggling, I guess they really struggled. It was amazing. The wind was bad. We talked about that, but the passing was horrible. And you see right there a snap that cost the Beavers a safety, and you think 2 points, no big deal. But wow, those 2 points and these 3 points, an easy field goal with plenty of time on the clock that would have put the Beavers actually within 2 points at that time.
And that's the difference in the game. And, you know, Garrett Owens missing, usually sure-footed Garrett Owens, missing on that 27-yard attempt. And then the 51-yarder, you know, that's a deep field goal in driving wins. Gary Anderson just hoping to get a spark at that point in the game.
Well, for sure. And we even saw Nick Perepsky have a tough time kicking the football in that weather. So the Beavers, who had been doing so well on special teams all season long, looked just the opposite last week. It really hurt them.
And it was the difference in the game. But on the cold, we do still have a damn good moment, and it's brought to you by Flat Tail Brewing. This is something that we saw in the Olympics, I guess, with the rugby sevens, but we haven't seen much of it in American football, especially recently.
Well, this is a highlight. Let's just look at this. Is a simple inside zone read. Quarterback's simply going to hand it off. Everybody's blocking pretty much straight ahead. You'll get a hit there and outside. Bolden comes across the receiver just to draw the linebacker out of the play. You're going to get a check block and then wide to use flare control. And this guy's just going to run it. It's our Pierce. Run it right up the middle and watch these blocks and what they do. You see it all the way through this. Now, look at the big offensive lineman, Brandell there. This is the right guard, Stanton. He's going to get up and make a big play. The left guard here. Here's a wide receiver. Bolden is clear back here, and watch what happens as this play continues.
The rugby scrum.
This is the rub. Because you look at Lavaca, you look at Gavin Andrews, the center. These guys are pulling him right here. They're pulling, pushing. I'm not sure that they ended up in a scrum as much as a dog pile, but it was quite a play. And the crowd was so excited. It was electric. And again, I think you got to talk about offensive linemen. Those were the guys pulling and pushing to get whatever yards they could get.
You know what? Sometimes you just got to push your guy forward for whatever you can get. I don't think anybody was anticipating that. But when you're holding him up, you got 2 guys holding him up, and 5 guys pushing him, good things are going to happen. Maybe you should put that in the playbook this week.
Any way to get yardage, any way to get points.
All right, we still have got a lot to get to. The Beavers offense, they were running the ball very well, but how about the defense? In a game where you knew that Utah was only going to run it, the Beavs bowed their back, especially in the second half. We're joined by Coach Gary Anderson next. Beavers Inside the Huddle rolls on. Back into the Beavers Inside the Huddle studio, along with Steve Priest. I'm Dusty Harrow, joined now by the head coach of the Beavs down in Corvallis, Gary Anderson, joining us. Coach Anderson, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you?
We're great, Coach. Your defense last week, they gave up some yards early on, but tightened down after that, and they played so well. Big stops in the second quarter. Every time you needed a stop, they came through and gave you a chance to win. Talk a little bit about their effort and also some of the injuries that play into the people who are having to step up, next man up, and do the job for you on that defense.
Yeah, I think they've grown and matured. They're practicing very well together, and they're learning to rely on each other within a defensive scheme, which is so important. Their effort is very good. And you're right, there was many opportunities in that game where they had to step up to keep us in the game and give us a chance, and they were able to do that. They took advantage of miscues that Utah presented to them, and they did a nice job. So it was good to see them have some success, and I think they've grown the last few weeks. They'll be tested in a big way this week, and I'm sure we'll talk about that as we go through the show. And the injury side of the thing is it's a struggle to deal with, to see the kids go through the tough preparation they have to go through, and then see that a lot of the season being ripped away from a lot of these kids has been very difficult. We're not the deepest team in America, but injuries are something that you have to be able to deal with. It gives other kids opportunities, and like I've said many times, it's important for me and all of us as assistant coaches and the players on the team to make sure that we take care of the kids that are injured and make sure that they still feel part of us, number one. Number two, that they're in a good mental mindset to continue to strive academically and be in a good spot socially, and then make sure that they rehab and get themselves back on the field as soon as they can. And that's how we try to treat injuries. We'll never use them as a crutch. We'll look at it as another man's opportunity to step up and make some plays.
Coach, offensively, you were able to run the ball very effectively against the Utah front seven that is very stout. In the passing game, though, the struggles were apparent. 1 yard passing through 3 quarters of football. And it was the weather, but when you go back and you watch film, what are you seeing in your passing game that needs to be kind of cleaned up with your guys?
Well, I would say it's all-encompassing of the offense, much as it's been many times when we've had this discussion throughout the year. It's some throws we like to throw a little better. It's throws that are right in the chest, and it bounces off their chest. It's a way too familiar sound to listening balls bounce off wide receivers' chests. It's not a good thing to hear. It's like hearing a punt getting blocked when you're not supposed to get a punt blocked. It's something we need to work hard on. It's also the protection at times, though I think that's been better. But if we put ourselves way up against the chains, we're going to put ourselves in a bad spot. And I don't care if that's in a 2-minute scenario situation. We got to get the ball out. We got to move the ball down the field. We have to be smart in how we're handling it. So it's the offense as a whole, and that includes myself, every coach, every player. Like I said, after the game, strength trainers, all the people. We got to get better, and it's a focus point. But we did run the ball well, which gave us an opportunity to win the game. We threw the ball at the end to give us a chance to be able to win, and we had one more throw. We might have had a chance to get victory, but we didn't. So the bottom line is we lost.
Coach, the third aspect of the football game, your special teams, they've been so strong all year. And then in this particular game, you have troubles with snaps. Most consistent kicker, one of them around in Garrett Owens, misses a couple of field goals. Punter has a little bit of bad day. Is that mostly elements? What were the problems with that?
That's a good question. You know, I would hope it wouldn't be the elements. We worked on kicking a wet ball all week long. You know, you can call it whatever you want. It's executing in the moment when we have to have it. It's crunch time. It's the weather. There's a lot of different ways you can look at things. And I guess if you're looking for a crutch, you can look for a crutch. If you're looking for an excuse, you can look for an excuse. The way I look at it is we all didn't execute in that moment, and those were critical moments. We felt very good about the first field goal, and nobody feels worse about missing field goals than Garrett. He's been very good all year long, and he's done a nice job of making those field goals. He kicked 3 or 4 of those at halftime that were the long one that he missed that were right down the middle, and we felt good about that distance, and it didn't go our way. And then the short one, obviously, there can be snapped better, it can be held better, it can be kicked better, and what didn't take place. So, you know, when you're in the moment and you're in tight games, there's going to be 1 or 2 things that pop out that either going to win the game for you or going to lose the game for you. And in this case, you know, quarterback power wins the game against Cal. Everybody's happy, and it's a great thing. We missed a couple kicks, and to me, it's not the end of the world. It's unfortunate we lost the game, but there's a lot of fingers to be pointed if that's the way you live, is by pointing fingers, but that's not how we live. We know there was a lot of opportunities to win that game. Special teams needs to be better, absolutely. It was a struggle on special teams and not just within the kicking part of it, and it needs to improve, and I expect it will. But for something that we've been that good at and not to execute in critical situations was not a good thing.
All right, we're just getting started with Coach Anderson as Beavers Inside the Huddle rolls on. The injuries are starting to mount up for the Beavs, and it's a big trip north against the 5th-ranked team in the country. We preview the visit to Seattle next. Beavers Inside the Huddle rolling on with Coach Anderson down in Corvallis. And Coach Anderson, you guys have a tough injury coming out of the Utah game. You usually don't address the severity of injuries, but Daryl Garrettson is out for the remainder of the season with that broken ankle. Can you talk about the emotions of a guy that you know very well in Daryl Garrettson? You know from him sitting last year and working his butt to learn the offense and learn the guys and get acquainted with Corvallis and being an Oregon State Beaver, to what he's built up with this team and the emotions of him going down with this injury for the year.
Well, it's like any other young man that goes down at any spot. It is very tough, and you know, Daryl's a competitor. He wanted to have a successful year, and he wanted to be in there every snap and go through every game and help us continue to build. But it wasn't in the cards, and you know, I went through 2 of those very serious injuries right about this point in my last 2 years of college football, and you know, you have to be a good teammate. You got to bounce back and be there for your kids, you know, be there for your teammates, excuse me. You know you're not going to be there on the field, but there's a lot of things. You can have a heavy impact on a team as you continue through the year and as you move forward. So it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for all of our kids. And again, what's their well-being. My biggest deal with Daryl right now is, let's get him fixed up, get him back here, and get him back in school, and then we'll take the next step. But it was tough, you know. And then 3 snaps later, Connor goes down, and I've never had that happen to quarterbacks, and I don't know if I've had players back-to-back at the same position get hurt like that. So it was a pretty crazy deal. But again, hey, Marcus stepped up, and he's ready to go, and shows his preparation, and we'll get out there and play like crazy.
Coach, you mentioned Marcus, and we know his history. He's had some really good days as a Beav, and that last quarter he was very effective. But tell us about the depth chart after Marcus. Where are you with your reps in practice? Are you the quarterback?
Well, yeah, it's Mason has come up and is taking second-team reps as the quarterback. We got a GA that can throw the ball pretty good in Chucky Keaton, so he's running the scout team now, which as actually being the quarterback, which is a real blessing to be able to have him be able to do that. Lyle could do that also, so we've got a couple kids that can do that if we need them. And then Mason takes the second team reps, and obviously the Seth package has been enhanced a little bit. We'll move forward with that and give him some opportunities to be able to potentially get in the game as needed. But now that package, you know, you don't want things to happen again, but obviously we've got to have 3 quarterbacks and be prepared for whatever comes our way. So we're preparing. They're doing a great job. I don't think you'll see the offense drastically change, other than hopefully productivity in the throw game with Marcus in there. That'd be great to see.
Coach, this Washington defense that you're going to face with those quarterbacks this week, it's remarkable. 14 points a game. They lead the nation in sacks. They're doing some things that are really special. They are loaded with physical talent, loaded with athletes, and now they've played together a few years. They're really good. Can you talk about them and what you can do to attack them?
Yeah, they're a special crew. It's not hard to see. You flip on the tape and you understand exactly where they are. It's the same people we played against a year ago and had very little, if any, success against them. So this is a team that they've done a great job of recruiting for a number of years. They have some very talented players. They play well together. They have a good scheme, and they've intertwined themselves into be a dominant defense. And you know, dominant defenses, they don't do a lot. They just say our guys are better than yours, and that's held true every time they've lined up this season and going back into last season for many of those games, especially the last half. So over in a nutshell, you have to stress them. Every defense has its deficiencies. You have to be able to work to get the ball to the outside. In the run game, make them respect that. Run the ball on the inside, make them respect that. You have to be able to throw the ball in all three areas, and that's the short, the intermediate, and the deep routes. And you know, that sounds very simple, but in turn, that's pretty complex to be able to have to defend those, formation them, put them in positions that you think can possibly make them have some communication and make them feel uncomfortable. And that's the key. And if we can have some success on first down and stay in control of the chains, that's imperative against these guys, because when they can just, you know, pin their ears back and come after you, they're very, very difficult to deal with on the defensive line. There's, you know, probably, I don't know, 4 to 5 to 6 maybe NFL guys that they got playing in that spot. So successful teams are led by coaches. Yes, are good coaches, but tremendous players. And these guys are one of the best overall teams I've seen for a long, long time. I've been blessed to be part of some very special teams in my career, and I would say these guys would be right up there with those teams that I were around that did special things.
You know, one of those players that you say is special is getting the word Heisman thrown around with him, and that's their quarterback in Jake Browning. People gushing about that young man. What do you see on tape that makes that quarterback, who's just a sophomore, so special?
Well, if there's things that jump out, 1 and 2 would be his accuracy on the deep ball is amazing. I mean, it is extremely accurate. He can make all the throws. But there's a lot of quarterbacks in this league that I think that can make all the throws, but the eliteness of that deep ball is special. And also, I'd say secondly within the throw game is his ability to escape early the rushes, 3-man, 4-man, 5-man rushes, find the open hole in the crease, keep his eyes down the field, and then still get it off and get it down to the receivers that are in the open field. And in turn, his receivers do a nice job of helping him when he gets in those pressure situations. So he's a very well-rounded quarterback. He has a great grasp and knowledge of what they're doing on the offensive side of the football. And again, he's surrounded by really good players. So it helps him a bunch. That offensive line, tight ends, running backs are very solid. I think the wide receivers are, again, there's a smattering of a number of NFL kids over there that are running routes for those guys. So they do a nice job on offense. They always have. And when they have really good players, it's extremely potent, and that's where they are today.
Coach, their running game has been very effective, too. They're running 3 guys, but Gaskins is the guy that we see all the time, putting up 100 yards a game. Mm-hmm. Is it inside the tackles, outside? What does he do that's so special?
Well, they're going to run, you know, they want to smash you. They want to get after you. They like to get physical within the run game, and they'll have it all. They got the fly sweeps, and they'll run off the edges. But if I say what do they think they want to be and what they do think what they like to do the most is they want to line up and run power to some different ways, different formations, and they want to be able to come in and run the down play and the zone play, which is just inside zone type of scenarios and situations, but they keep it off balance. They do a tremendous job with their play action, their boot game, which complements their run game very well. So it's there's a lot of 2 tight ends on the field. They do get to some 11 personnel quite a bit, but they want to smash you in between the tackles and then take their shots with some talented guys getting to the edges of the defense also. So it's, you know, their run game is something that's been very, very good for them. There's not really anything that they've done on offense that hasn't been good to them all year long. I mean, it's they score a bunch of points and they execute extremely well.
Coach Anderson, thank you very much for the time. Good luck in Seattle.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a great day. Go Beavs.
All right. We got our keys to the game coming up next as the Beavs head up to 5th-ranked Washington. You love the Beavs, and we got you covered with 4 shows dedicated to the Oregon State Beavers all week long right here on CSN. All right, Steve, let's get right to it. It's our Northwest Honda dealers' keys to the game, where I got to start. Protect the football. University of Washington thrives on turnovers and capitalizing on them. Number 2, protect Marcus McMarion. Keep him upright. Give him a nice little pocket to throw in. Step up and deliver a strike. And then number 3 for me, prevent the big play. Whether it's John Ross going deep, Miles Gaskin to the outside, you got to prevent the big play, because that's where UW is at their best.
Well, I'll put the asterisk around your number 2. Protect that quarterback. There aren't many behind him right now, so please do. I think the keys to this game are to play in the moment. The Beavers, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, you can't take a play off. You got to play the next play up. You got to play every play. You got to stay absolutely in the moment. On offense, it's kind of tough when you're changing quarterbacks and so forth, but you got to mix plays up. You simply can't let an already scary good defense line up and play the run only. So you've got to mix it up. You got to throw short and deep, as Coach Anderson said to us. You got to be all over the field with your offense. And defensive, just exactly what you said in number 3. You got to go out there and stop the big plays. This is an offense at Washington that can put points on you. Stop them.
Great minds think alike. Number 3. Number 3. All right, we are going to be back every Thursday night with Coach Gary Anderson throughout this football season, 8:30 p.m. And make sure you stick around. CSN has got all the Beavs you can handle right here all week long. #Beavs is coming up next. We'll see you next week on Beavers Inside the Huddle.